Hey, welcome to Global Topic Live. I'm Jim Kunkel.
And I'm Heidi Brooks.
Today, we're going to have a real interesting conversation with two very interesting fellows. Heidi, I think probably let's just go ahead and start talking polyurea with our guests. What do you think about that?
Bring them on in.
Excellent, excellent. So the first guest that I'm going to bring on here is Dudley Primeaux. Dudley, welcome.
Hey, welcome, guys. I'm traveling through an airport today, believe it or not, and a trip that came up sort of at the last minute. So I might have to put my mask on here after a while because the Karens came by a while ago and told me, even though I've got my drink, but anyway, it's good to be here. With flight traveling these days, you never know what to expect. And I've been on some interesting ones here lately, and my travel kind of got changed early this morning. So I'm going to probably have to jump off here in about 20 minutes or so I can catch my plane and go where I'm going. But anyway, it's great to be here. Look forward to having this discussion with you and also Heidi, and then my really good friend, Mr. Benjy Abbott. So this will be fun.
Definitely.
Thank you for the effort. It's very appreciated, and you look like a busy man, so we appreciate it.
Definitely. Let's go ahead and bring Benjy in here as well, Benjy Abbott. Benjy, welcome.
Yeah, I need to put my mask on now so I can sort of match it with that's one thing I have yet to have done. It's been just over a year now since I've stepped foot onto an airplane. So it's my time's coming. I know travel will be kicking back off at some point in time. And I was listening to someone talk today how that they forgot half of the stuff that they typically took with them when they traveled before. It's relearning that curve of you get in your routine. But yeah, glad to be here. I'm in the comfort though of my home office, so it's all nice. No mask required here.
You're lucky, Benjy.
So Benjy, let's go ahead and let's start off the discussion here regarding we're talking polyurea this afternoon. When it comes to polyurea, there are a lot of people watching right now that have limited or no knowledge of polyurea. Could you just give a definition of what polyurea is?
Oh man, go Dudley! I mean, it's a coating. It's a coating system. It's a polymer. It's interesting. It has fast turnaround times, but it still has to be treated just like any other coating. It has its uses and it has its places where it should not be used. So it has its limitations.
So
it's our life. It's our life, Jim. Pretty much is what Benjy and I live every day. So without it, it would be difficult. If you will.
Dudley, since we're kind of limited on time with you here because with you boarding the plane here shortly, could you go through the history of polyurea?
Okay. So I'll try to keep this brief as possible, but also fun. All right. So the polyurea, from a coating standpoint technology, was an offshoot of the original polyurea rim technology, and rim meaning reaction injection molding. And that's what they used to manufacture automotive parts, if you will. And that started in the early 80s, the polyurea rim. Very fast technology, 1 to 2 second gel times. They were filling molds. They were running anywhere from 12 to 30 pounds a second outputs on these machines and making these parts. Prior to that, the company that I worked for, Texaco Chemical Company, which is where all this was developed, they had attempted to do some solvented type polyurea systems. A lot of times you can make a polymer in a solvent and it works very well. But then you remove the solvent and try to do it 100% solids, it doesn't work. And so that was in the 70s time period. So along come the mid 80s, I'm working for Texaco Chemical in the rigid urethane foam area. And we looked at trying to take this polyurea rim technology and making a spray coating out of it. And the reason, because of all the major properties of it, the high thermal properties, the high tensile properties, the ability to cure up very quickly and set very quickly. And so we had the idea that we're going to spray it and make a coating. And it was real funny because a lot of the research chemists there at Texaco Chemical, PhD chemist, says, oh, no, it'll never work. You'll never make it happen. Well, I got a pretty hard head. And so basically I tried to prove them wrong. And we actually showed and developed that, yes, we could make a spray coating out of this. Of course, it took higher performance equipment, bigger equipment, if you will, than what we were using to spray the rigid urethane foam at the time, because you had to heat it, you had to develop the pressure, you had to develop the flow rate to overcome that mixed viscosity and speed. But that was the funny part. It was done from somebody saying you can't do it, if you will, and so we proved them wrong. Again, it was a technology that was developed primarily as a coating system to go over rigid urethane foam. We never envisioned we'd use it over concrete or geotextile or anything like that.
Very good.
Interesting.
Dudley, do you have to go?
No, I apologize. I was trying to block the outside noise. I got my little headset on,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm down here in one of their little Eagle terminals, and so there's no room I can hide in. So sorry. I can go in the bathroom, but I don't think that would work out too well.
Dudley, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. Hey, that's what you get when you go live, right?
Yeah.
Please
Well.
go in the bathroom.
So, Benjy, let me ask you this, Benjy. When it comes to the different applications and uses of polyurea, typically in our industry and some other industries, how are polyureas being used?
Oh, Jim, they're being used in all different areas. The two most common substrates that polyurea is typically applied to: concrete and steel. That's probably your two most common. Then you add in your geotextile fabrics, very, very common now, as well as polyurethane foam, still for roofing foams. I'll say not as much up over roofing foams, but we do run into them from time to time, wanting to put down polyurea up over roofing type foam structures, or foam that's up over the exterior of a tank. So they're needing a little bit of added protection for maybe some types of impacts on the lower sections of the tank, where they may have other types of vehicular traffic around, just to protect the foam.
Yeah, and the other thing, like I noticed sometimes too, polyurea can be used in anything from swimming pools to even in applications with automotive and trucking and everything like that too, correct?
Jim, you really disappointed me there. You mentioned swimming pools. We get that a lot. Can I use polyurea in swimming pools? And we try to sort of most times shy away from swimming pools, just because of it's such an aggressive environment. And you got to think about chlorine is a oxidizer. And so it really accelerates the oxidation process of that coating film and just leaches out the color, oxidizes it. Because the thing is, there's no, especially your residential pools, they can be shocked very heavily. They can be over chlorinated very, very heavily, and that takes a big effect on that coating's lifespan. Most time when I work with someone wanting to use polyurea inside of a swimming pool, we typically recommend that they use another a top coat. So the polyurea is used as more of a waterproofing membrane, and then a acceptable top coat over the top of that, then for the long lasting effect.
Very good. Let me bring on back up Dudley's. Hey, Dudley, let me ask you this question regarding the uses of polyurea. Polyurea can be used in a lot of different areas. The most interesting, I think, was regarding bridge deck. Would you want to talk a little bit about polyurea use in bridge decking?
Yeah, so the primary use in the bridge deck application was not so much painting the structure of the bridge or anything like that we would, let's say, normally see when we're working with a bridge. But it can either be traffic bridges or rail bridges where they use the polyurea as the waterproofing membrane underneath, if it's a traffic bridge, underneath the wearing course, or if it's a rail bridge, it's the waterproofing membrane underneath the ballast that's put down for the rails. In the case of the rail bridge, the polyurea is providing, let's say, barrier protection of that steel or concrete deck. And then as well, if it's a steel rail bridge, believe it or not, the polyurea acts as an NVH. NVH stands for noise, vibration, and harshness. And what it does is it actually deadens the sound. You don't get the ringing noise. In the case of the traffic bridges, vehicular traffic, then they'll put an asphalt wearing course on top. Now, asphalt doesn't bond very well to polyurea. So you have to use a slower set polyurea and then broadcast a certain aggregate into it such that the asphalt will bond to that. Otherwise, you'll have that asphalt deck slide off of that polyurea if a big truck comes along and slams on his brakes. That actually happened on a bridge deck in Salt Lake City, Utah, a few years ago. So, I mean, it's funny. I think it's funny. It's really not funny, but in a way, it reminds you of the Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, which by the way haven't been banned yet. You can still watch Coyote Roadrunner cartoons. So sorry about that, but
so for both of you, Juan Caballero asked a question about uses of polyurea in the marine market. What applications or uses in the marine industry? Dudley or Benjy, you guys can answer this.
Well, in the marine industry, I'll give a couple that I know Benjy is going to. Would be like some of your piling coatings, the offshore pilings and things like that, which has become very popular. Then in some other marine applications, I mean, like aquarium linings, that's marine, but aquarium linings. And so those are a couple. Benjy will throw in a few more here for us. So.
Yeah, we know the sheet pile was one of the first ones I was going to. Those are seem to be gaining a lot of traction just because of they do hold up to the abuse of the driving them in. So it sort of acts as a protection there. Then also it's going below the water line. Not so much as far as ships, maybe barges. We've got a few people that's actually coating barges with the polyurea, so they take the barges out, work them up on the waters. Those are more so the smaller type spud barges, where that they work either up on bridges or other type of structures, holding up good.
So another question that came in here regarding the use of polyurea: is it used in external pipeline application?
I know for a fact it has in some. I think the biggest challenge there is the working with the cathodic protection system. So it can be a little tough being able to withstand that cathodic disbondment, especially when you have a one coating coupled with a secondary coating. They both have to work off from that same CP system.
Okay, and then a LinkedIn user had posted this question regarding the use of polyurea in wastewater applications, and it says here, in your opinion, on extending it to underwater marine systems.
Most definitely.
Used pretty heavily, I believe. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's check in with Dudley. I see Dudley's on the move here.
No, I was moving a little closer to my gate. Just to add to what Benjy said on the marine applications, one, I mean, he knows about it, but he probably just slipped his mind at the time, is that they use polyurea a lot to coat the inside of hulls on some of these fishing boats.
Yes.
And shrimp boats and stuff. And so it's a real nice protective coating. Typically they apply it over foam.
Right.
And it works very well for insulation. Plus, it's easy to clean. You don't get the bacteria and things like that. If you look at like wastewater applications, I mean, polyurea, when it's applied properly in wastewater applications, like your clarifiers, your grit channels, things like that, it performs very well. There have been some failure issues, if you will, and if you trace them back, it's because the guys didn't go in and do the proper surface prep, like preparing the concrete properly. They didn't pre-fill bug holes. All right, and that's mandatory if you're doing a concrete tank lining. And then, of course, then they had a lot of pinholes. And as soon as you put the wastewater in, it goes to the concrete. And so everybody says, oh, look, the polyurea failed. And it was like, no, the polyurea didn't fail. The application failed. And, that's what trying to get some of these guys to understand. It's not just the coating. You got to apply it properly. And as Benjy said earlier, I mean, this is a coating technology. You still have to use the proper application techniques, equipment, and so forth, and use the right material for the right project. So,
Dudley or Benjy, speaking of the surface prep requirements for steel and concrete, what are the cleanliness surface requirements for concrete and steel?
Typically, for most things that I deal with, we refer back to SSPC SP13.
Yeah.
For concrete, ICRI 310.2 are typically a CSP 4 to CSP 5 most times. And then steel, if it's going to be for any type of immersion service, same thing as for any other coating system there, SSPC SP10 near white blast or SP5 white metal blast. Now, if it's going to be atmospheric, SP6 will typically be fine. The biggest thing there, though, is the profile depth on the steel, where that most coatings, such as your epoxies or your zincs, you're typically looking at 2 to 3 mil minimum or maximum. We look at 4 to 5 mil minimum. We typically say the deeper the better, because because polyurea systems is a thick film coating system. We're not going down at 12 to 16 mils. We're typically going 60 to possibly 125 mils, sometimes even thicker. So you need that aggressive, deep, angular profile to grip.
Yeah. Let me bring up a question here from Guillermo. Guillermo wrote here, he found some people that they think that less surface prep is needed when you coat concrete with polyurea compared to what you might need with other systems. What would you recommend to people interested in using these systems? And I think it's probably in also educating people too with the use of a polyurea that, there is some level, obviously there's going to be a level of surface preparation involved.
Right. A broomed finish is not a profiled finish for polyurea over concrete. Still need to do, either your abrasive blasting, your steel shot blasting, your grinding. Again, that SP13, you need that good roughened surface. You need to open up any type of irregularities such as bug holes inside of the concrete. It needs to be filled. Those type of imperfections, again, same as with any other coating system, you won't, because with polyurea up on concrete, you're also most time using a primer, and that primer needs to be able to penetrate into the concrete. If that primer cannot penetrate in, it's just drying right on the top layer of the concrete, and you're going to end up with a very weak adhesion to the substrate.
Very good.
Now, keeping in line with the QA and QC, what are some of the checkpoints that you see in inspection for polyurea?
Most of your basic ones for any of your coating systems, a hold point after surface preparation, hold point after your primer application. Ensure that primers are applied correctly. Make sure that your primers is also mixed correctly. If they are multi-component materials, you want to make sure that all components are going in at the correct values. You never want to have a stack of cans left over that wasn't used. That never happens.
Yeah.
So basically, I would say the inspection checklist would basically go for the same for any epoxy system. One of the benefits, though, with most of your polyurea systems versus your epoxy systems is once the coating is applied, you can typically start your quality control checks maybe a half hour after the application process has started. So you can sort of come in behind as long as you're wearing proper PPE and start doing most of your, your at least your primary quality control checks. Where if it was a epoxy system, you're typically waiting till the next day. So you can actually be a half hour or so behind the sprayers. And if there's anything that needs to be touched up, they can then drop back and touch it up while they're still within their product recoat time.
What are some of those control checks that you do that you could start a half an hour in?
The product thickness testing.
Yeah.
Most commonly.
And it sprays anywhere from 60 mil to 125?
Oh, yes. That's not in one spray pass. That's going to be a multi-pass, could be a multi-directional application depending upon the surface configuration. But, typically for most time for the spray gun that I typically use when I do spray with my output, to put down 80 mils would be about four passes across the surface. So you take a coating that dries, that basically has a gel time of between 5 and 10 seconds. You can do a pretty good sizable area, then come right back across it with your next pass. That way, as you're going on, you're actually building to your final film build as you progress on.
Yeah.
All right, let's. We're gonna have to wish Dudley.
Board is playing.
Dudley,
Yeah,
hey,
no. Wait. I hang on. I'm gonna get on, but I can visit with you a little bit. So.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah.
I enjoy Dudley.
This is kind of cool. We're watching them board the plane here. I'm gonna.
I haven't seen the inside of a plane in so long.
Let me throw my bag up here. Okay. All right.
I appreciate that connection in Charlotte. That's a good internet connection.
Okay. So I made it on the plane.
You in first class?
What's that?
Are you in first class?
Oh yeah. It's pretty much where they put me nowadays. So it's like we do it. But with Benjy and his comments about surface preparation, I can't reiterate more. He's exactly correct. The only thing I'll point out is that when we look at polyurea and going over concrete, one of the differences in polyurea compared to other coatings is that the polyurea doesn't go into the concrete. It sits on the surface. So if you haven't done good prep on that concrete surface, it's only going to be as good as what's it sticking to. And like you said, we always use a primer, because then the primer actually goes into the concrete and creates that composite. Yes, I know a lot of guys that spray over concrete and don't use a primer, but you can peel it off pretty easy, but it's pulling that initial layer of concrete that's very weak. So that's what you have to be very careful of. So.
Very good.
Well, should we say goodbye to you, Dudley, or taking off?
Well, we're just now boarding, so what I see is the plane's not supposed to leave for another 20 minutes, so we're going to get on here and sit here. So
okay.
I have a quick question about the polyurea having rapid cure. Are there any formulations that are that have a slower cure?
Sure.
Yes.
Let me take that one away, because that's your specialty right there. But yes, there is.
Yeah, so we do have systems that have a slower set time. So, if you look at most of the real fast ones, they're in that 3 to maybe 5 to 6 second time frame, and then we'll go with a slower set system. If it's a spray system, which may be up to about a minute in the gel time, and allows us to put the aggregate or a good surface finish. And then also we have the really slow ones that are several minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, that we can do a type of hand mix with. And then what these are used for a lot of times is for patch and repair some material, as well as coating stuff too. So, and then of course within the polyurea umbrella, you have the polyaspartic technology, which is the aliphatic thin film systems, and those have pot lives of 20 to 45 minutes. So, most people don't think of those as a quote polyurea, but they are. They're just a thin film applied decorative type system.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll add in there, that when I'm dealing with applicators that maybe use the fast set systems day in, day out, and then they go to one of these slower set systems with maybe a minute plus jail time, they'll typically come back and say, "Hey, we can't make this stuff stick. It's just running. It's running down the wall, or it's falling off of the ceiling," because they're still trying to spray like they're spraying a fast set material. Mm-hmm. And I keep telling them, it's a painting process. If you are applying it and it's running down the wall, you're putting it on too heavily for that coating's reactivity. So you need to use a lower output gun. You may need to use a further standoff distance from spraying, and put down lighter film builds. Allow that film to then gel before you put your next application to it. If you try to apply a slower set material like you would a fast set material, it's going to run, it's going to sag, it's going to drip, it's going to make stalactites.
Yeah,
it's not going to look professionally applied. So you got to keep that inside of mind. A lot of these spray applications is a painting process.
Before we go on to the viewer's question real quick, is there any certification that people can obtain, or where would they get training for the applicator process for polyurea?
Well, SSPC, AMP now, AMPP. We have the plural component applicator for polyurea and high solids coatings certification through SSPC AMP. Dudley started off teaching that. I'm also a instructor. Me and Dudley has taught that class together several times, and that right now is the most current certification class. Okay, where they actually get a certification. Dudley.
Yeah, I just want to add something here, since Benjy's mentioned that, because that is a very good class, but that class is not for a brand new sprayer. Somebody that's not done it any before. So there are some requirements for that, but just want to reiterate that's a really good course. That is the only quote certification course that relates, and so that's a good one.
Yes. And then you have your classes. Dudley has a training class. SPI Versaflex has our training class. I'm actually teaching it now virtually. Done the 4th installment yesterday. So basically, it was when this pandemic hit. It was like, okay, so I would do a lot of in-person teaching, 12 plus times a year, and how can I continue on with the teaching process? So we sort of sat down and took our training class and separated it up, and wanted to do it sooner, but just things did not allow it. But we're now started with, we just done our 4th installment. We have 8 weeks of it. It was like, if I can take and do all of my classroom material, where that we're not doing hands-on stuff, if I can go in ahead and at least present that on a virtual format, we've sort of, at least put that part to rest, and then later on, when it's more safer to get people together inside of a more controlled environment under PPE, then we can break them up into smaller groups and do the hands-on sections. And that is our current plan right now. But as far as other training classes, Dudley has his training class. He's doing VersaFlex. We have ours. Then you have the Polyurea Development Association. Dudley started out with them. One of the founders. I came on later. Actually sat through the class with Dudley. Actually, I had to take the class 3 times, and I passed all 3 times. But yes, Dudley always, because I just kept showing up. But I was also bringing other people to the training classes, and I would just sort of wind up and sit in and learn more. So it's and I would say, you don't want to just stop with one training class. You never stop learning about this. I know Dudley's always learning something new. I'm always learning something new. If you ever get to the point where you feel like you know everything, you're actually starting to back up. It's a continual learning process. Always something out there that you can learn new.
Absolutely.
Heidi, I'm going to go ahead and bring that question on here. So a LinkedIn user asked about hybrid resin systems with polyurea. Which ones do you see as the most promising for harsh environment protection?
I can answer some of that. So you have different types of hybrids, and probably one of the more popular hybrids that's coming into play right now is what they call the cold spray polyurea. I have a problem with cold spray because what do you mean by cold? What it is, it's the low pressure spray polyurea that's not heated. Okay, so that has a very specific use area, if you will. We do make some hybrid systems that actually, hang on.
We're doing the announcements.
Yeah.
So,
So I muted it while the announcements were going on because I didn't want you guys hear. So we do have some hybrids that are designed for higher chemical resistance and whatever. Many people think that the hybrid systems are actually cheaper, but the reality is that a hybrid that's done for high chemical resistance or high performance, those are actually more expensive than a regular polyurea system. So look, there's nothing wrong with hybrids. Hybrids are not necessarily bad, but just like a regular polyurea, they have their place in where they're to be used. Okay, so just like anything else. So
very good. Heidi, did you have another question?
No, I'm all out.
I think we did it. And I'm looking at the stream here, and I don't see any other new comments coming in or questions coming in.
Those are great ones, so.
Yeah. So, Dudley, I know you got to go here. I appreciate it so immensely that you did this.
Yeah.
I felt really bad because, I wanted to do this, and this trip came up, and, I was booking my tickets, and then they said, no, we'll book them for you. And I said, no problem. And here's when I'd like to travel, if you will. And so what I did, I made an assumption I was going through Dallas, having plenty of time. And then I get my notification on my tickets, and it's not that way. And I'm like, I have to change it because I have to be on this call, this deal for my good friend Jim and my new friend Heidi, and of course my very old friend, not from an age standpoint, but just from a standpoint of time-wise, my old friend Benjy, and just really wanted to do this. So I was going to do whatever possible it took to be on here and do it.
We got some viewers sending you some well wishes on your flight, and they appreciate your effort as well.
Yeah.
Safe travels, Dudley.
Yes, sir. So you guys be good. Thanks for allowing me to be on here, and look forward to seeing you all in person someday soon.
Yes.
All right, Dudley.
Already.
Yeah.
Safe travels, my friend.
Yes.
I will say, with the spring weather warming up and whatnot, I was kind of getting antsy to get out there and see a lot of people I haven't seen in person. But after his flight debacle and with all the stuff around, I'm like, I'm glad I'm at home today.
Yeah, it's going to be. I know it's going to be because it's going to be different for me when I have to travel again. Because it's just especially flying. Because I had my routine down. I had actually
there's a lot of
suitcases that would have stuff in them. I would have either 2 or 3, depending upon the duration, depending on which suitcase I took. My backpack, I'm definitely going to. It's going to have to be totally emptied out. Make sure that it's flyable safety wise.
Absolutely.
Sure no prohibited items have slipped in. So yeah, it's going to be a totally different thing. And then no telling what other type of changes that they'll implement on us as well. So
yeah,
we shall see. But as far as polyurea, it's I treat it as any other coating. It has its limitations. It has its advantages. You have to work within that realm. If you don't, it's going to turn and bite you.
Yeah.
There is systems that has a high chemical resistance, and there's systems that has a very low to no chemical resistance. So you have to work in the correct chemistry. Make sure that you pick out the correct formulation. Formulated polyurea, and that's typically what I do a lot. Is I help the air sales team picking and choosing or turning down a job because we just don't have one to offer for that type of resistance, or we'd have to go to another coating system technology. Just as one this morning I was looking at, due to its environment. The polyureas just won't work, so we have to then look at a vinyl ester. So it's the way that I typically tell a lot of my training classes. I'll ask, especially the guys, how many here has a toolbox? And if you're a guy, you've got a toolbox, and a lot of women too. Okay, but do you just have one tool in that toolbox?
Mm-hmm.
No, you got all types. Coatings is the exact same way. You have coatings to do this job and another coating to do that job. Polyurea fits in there exactly the same way. So that's sort of the way that I look at it, as coming from the a painting contractor oriented family. We done water towers, bridges, steel mills. So it's just painting. To me, it's just a faster form. It has its, like I said, advantages, and it also has its limitations. When I was looking at polyurea back in 95, 96, I was told it was going to take over the coatings world. Epoxies was going to disappear. Hasn't happened yet. I was told no surface prep was needed. Yeah, putting on 100 mils, it's not going to rust through it. Well, that's true. It's not going to rust through. It's just not going to stick.
Yeah.
Because that rust, that corrosion isn't tightly bonded to the substrate. At some point in time, it'll just fall off. It'll disbond and fail. Luckily for me, I didn't buy into it because I come out of the painting field, heavy abrasive blasting experience. So we always abrasive blast. If a job called for hand tool cleaning, I could sweep blast it quicker than I could hand tool clean it.
Mm-hmm.
So
very good, Benjy. Hey, I both Heidi and I, we really appreciate having you on, Dudley on, and talking polyurea with us today. What an interesting live stream this was.
Yes, yes. Anytime Dudley's involved, it's interesting.
Yeah. So let's bring Dudley back in again.
Okay.
Dudley, you there?
Yes, I'm here. We're still here on the ground, but we will be taking off pretty soon. They just made the announcement that we have to have our phone shut off, things like that. But the door is still open, so as long as the door is open, I can have my phone on.
It's good to know the rules. Any we're gonna close out the stream. Any last thoughts or statements there, Mr. Dudley?
Yeah. Well, the only thing, I really appreciate your patience and allowing me to be on it in the situation that I'm in. But I thought it went real well, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to do something like this with my good friend Benjy, and then also with you, Jim. Yeah, it's also you, Jim. We've traveled together a couple of places. We're supposed to be together in Panama, but that didn't quite work out. But we had a really good time in Chile, and so maybe Heidi can join us next time, or something like that, and experience the road show that occurs.
Oh yeah, I bet I can, and I bet I can keep up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody can hear a bell ringing, my dog's telling me end the stream now. Let's go for a walk. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Heidi, that was an interesting stream, wasn't it?
Very much so. It was a great stream, and we got a lot of interest in the polyurea. So I even learned a few things. So it was a great stream.
Definitely. And so this Thursday coming up, we have David Rivet from Rivet Coating Consultants, and we're going to talk about in the aspect of protective coatings when it comes to failures. There is forensic investigation that happens, and David has a lot of experience, and I'd say he's definitely an expert when it comes to the forensic aspect of protective coatings.
Yeah.
So please join us on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on LinkedIn Live, and see another Global Topic Live interview with Heidi and myself. Anything closing here, Heidi, that you wanted to leave with anybody?
No, I'll let Lily, right? It's your dog's name?
Lily, yeah. She keeps ringing the bell.
No, I'll let you go for Lily, but I do look forward to that Thursday conversation with David.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. Okay, everybody. We'll see you Thursday. Thank you.
Everyone.